think so often we can talk about the thing that we have to do, right, as a challenge that's ahead of us and ask for advice. We can talk about the thing that we've done that like went super well and the things that we learned from it, but we don't often talk about it when we're in the thick of it. And boy, are we. We had our tech check this morning. We're currently getting some videos in from our speakers. So we're very much in the thick of it. And I am thrilled to be here. Yurii, do you want to say any opening words?
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I'm always happy to talk, and for sure, like with amazing person as Lisa, as I'm working with, and amazing person as Lori, who invite us here. So I'm happy to tell you about everything we learned during this journey, and we'll see how it goes.
I love it. Well, I will kick us off and just talk a little bit about what CultivatorCon is, what Cultivate is, what a cultivator is, because there are a lot of C words there, and you might not know what they mean. So I work for a company called Cultivate. We are a education and consulting firm that works with large companies. And our goal is really to make large companies more empowering places to work. So we do research, we develop programs, we facilitate sessions, and we're often brought in by, say, a department lead or a company lead to work on culture challenges within a particular organization. And from that work, we have learned so much. But let's face it, most of us don't have access to a large organizational budget where we can bring in folks to help us solve our empowerment challenges. So, what we do with our community, and CultivatorCon is very much an outgrowth of that, is we use what we learn on the paid side and we funnel it through for free to our community in the form of events, connections, and access to some of our exclusive content. So, what we're trying to do with the content, with the conference itself, is really create a conference for the rest of us. So we define a cultivator as somebody who is striving to make positive change within their organization. That can look a lot of ways. But often when we're going to these conferences, there's a whole lot of like New York Times bestsellers, there's podcasters, there's a whole lot of experts who are great. I read their books, I listen to their podcasts. But when I am like having a challenge with getting an idea put through to my boss or my department head, I kind of want to hear from somebody who's done it and who's done it fairly recently. So with this conference, we are bringing in 10 speakers and seeking to really elevate their stories of making organizational change. And we have folks, one of our speakers worked on the initiative to expand the color range of Band-Aids at Johnson & Johnson. I'm getting over being sick. Okay, we're back. She led the initiative to expand the color range for skin tones for Band-Aids at Johnson & Johnson. And that actually was something that she just saw and was like, hey, like this is not working for me. I think we can, and I think we should change this, and worked with a coalition of her colleagues to bring about that change, which you can now see every time you go into CVS, but you probably don't know Shalina's story. So this is an attempt to kind of tell you the stories behind these big changes that often don't get a lot of play. So with that, I will toss to Yurii. Yurii, do you want to talk about how you got involved in this wild ride?
Yeah, it was a wild involvement, frankly speaking, because it started with the war in the Ukraine. Because when the war started, I basically lost every source of income I had because I was working with some Ukrainian communities. I was making some sales courses and all the stuff. And for sure, when the war is in your country, nobody wants to learn how to sell. So everyone wants to learn how to live, how to survive. So basically, what I've done, I reached out to David Spinks, the founder of the CMX community, and told like, hey, David, I lost any kind of income and I have this community experience. Can you help me to find some community job? And he was like, yeah, sure, I will do a post. And one of the first people who replied to those posts was Steve Gargiulo, the founder of Cultivate. And he was like, Yeah, we have a community, so I would love for you to work on it. And we have an amazing Lisa, so you work together on this community. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm super happy. And it's like I didn't have any experience of working internationally because I was working only with Ukrainian communities. And I was like, yeah, it's hard, but let's do it. So we started working. And what really amazed me at first, how supportive Lisa is. And second, how supportive people from the cultivators community are. Because, like, I am a member of CMX community, of community club, and all this stuff, but people there are amazing, and there are a lot of conversations going and etc. But in cultivators community, like people help you just because you are a person. You don't even have to ask, like they just listen to your story and like, how can I help you? So that's exactly what Laura also doing always, always. So just, and I was so amazed, and I'm super happy of this, of how it went. So we started working, and we are still working till today. So it's been like 9 months already, something like that. So it was a long journey, and with every day getting to know those people, like I'm getting more and more amazed of how great people are. And it's not that community where you have a lot of messages, where you have like all the stuff going on. People are not like, no words, more deals. So that's what I really love about the cultivators community. And every time we have some events like action hours, change-a-thons, coffee with cultivators. It's not like in sake of engagement, but it's about really helping other people, really helping each other, and having every like even having just after a book club, you are going with a lot of ideas, with a lot of things you want to try, with a lot of things that you can how you can improve your life, and it's super amazing. So Lisa, tell please about action hour, change a tone, how it works.
Yeah. So the idea, first of all, I just want to say, I say all the time that like I obviously wish that I could have started working with Yurii under completely different circumstances than the reality of what happened. But we are so lucky to have his expertise as a part of our community, and especially as a part of our team that's building CultivatorCon. And going forward, when I say like we are doing a thing, I also want to include our marketing lead, Sydney, who were like the three musketeers kind of this conference. So she's not on this call, but Sydney is very much present in our we. So, but we are a very, like Yurii was saying, a very events focused community. So when we started working in this space, we have folks who are change makers at work. They're busy. They don't want to chime in on questions that don't bring them value. They don't want to show up for events that are not bringing them tangible value. So we had to really get creative for what these folks from around the world, from different companies and from different job types, could get together around. And what we found was there was a real need for peer support framework. So I come from an addiction recovery peer support background, and forming recovery type meetings and communities around a very vulnerable topic. And what I really learned from that space is that folks get a lot out of hearing other people's stories, which is something you all as community professionals know. But they also get a lot out of offering, maybe they don't think they have expertise, but they have experienced a thing and they can resonate around that thing, or they can offer something that they did to move through it. And so taking that kind of idea of a peer support framework and morphing it into what would be helpful in the job sphere, we came up with Action Hour. It's pretty simple. It is a work related peer support event. You show up for an hour, you share who you are, where you work, and you share a challenge that you're facing at work. So it could be that your boss will not listen to any of your ideas, your ERG has no budget and no ability to get one. What do I do? It could be something like burnout, we hear a lot. And we come together, we break off into little groups, and we go and we discuss our challenges. And everyone has a chance to share their challenge, but also offer feedback and advice to each other. So this has led to some of our kind of most lasting connections within the community, and also just a lot of really practical knowledge. I mean, I always learn a lot there. Sometimes I bring a challenge, sometimes I don't. But Action Hour has quickly become, I think, kind of the social backbone of our community in a way, because it allows folks to come together, say, here's a challenge I'm facing, feel seen, witnessed, heard, supported, and then also set an action item to move forward so that they're accountable for the next time that they show up. So that is Action Hour. That's a big thing going on in our community. And then I think you asked me about Change-a-thon as well, right, Yurii?
Yep.
All right, Change-a-thon is going over through a makeover and will actually be re-released at CultivatorCon. So Change-a-thon, the idea around it is that we have them once a quarter in our community. And we have 3 members come forward and they share an idea they have for change at work. They get 10 minutes of feedback from the entire community. So this is a chance to kind of get the collective brain power, where folks tell them how to move forward, what wouldn't work, any holes they kind of see in their plan, whether their data plan makes any sense for them to present this to leadership. We then pair them with a mentor, and it is kind of this long-standing process over 3 months where this person takes their idea and then starts putting it into action within their own organization, so that we can really see these changes take place in a supported way. And then once you've moved through that process, you're eligible to become a Change-a-thon mentor. What we realized is that some of those folks were then taking this framework, bringing it into their company, and having 3 people present ideas within their company. So what we're in the process of doing right now is designing an event framework, kind of an event in a box situation that you could take within your organization, and you can stand it up with support, and use it to create meaningful change and connection within your organization. So more to come on that when we get to the conference itself. But we also have coffee with cultivators, and Yurii, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I will just add, so what is really cool about Action Hour and Change-a-thon, that people are not just talking, but they are working. So they're getting those ideas and they are making them into life, and they are sharing their experience later on. So it's like a constant cycle, like somebody come with challenge, receive help, share feedback, receive more help, then helps others. So it's a wheel of life, I would say. And coffee with cultivators, it's a really fun experience where you just go meet other people and go 3 times into different rooms for 5 minutes. And you have just this one-on-one conversation where you can talk about anything, like really anything. We always have some question for people just in case like you never met each other and you don't know what to talk about. You always have a theme, but also you have just 5 minutes, so it's not that hard. And people never have enough time to talk, so it encourages that we encourage them to continue their conversations. Like, I don't know, maybe we are slack, maybe they will jump on a Zoom call, maybe they will even meet in person. But the main idea is to make something super fast, super fun, and not obligatory at all. Just in case you have time, you can jump in and meet some cool people. You never know where the life gets you, so just do it. And let's jump to the conference, Lisa.
Yeah, so the theme of this conversation, I know we've kind of done a lot of framing, but the theme of this conversation is around creating intentional conferences. And I do want to say up front, this is my first conference. So, like, I am not an expert here. I appreciate the chance to be amongst peers like this. I appreciate working with Yurii so that I can learn along the way. So I'm sure, James mentioned doing unconferences. That is so cool. I can't wait to check those out. But very much of the spirit that, like, we all have something to teach and we all have something to learn here as well. But I am happy to walk you through what we did. So this conference turned out it started as an idea in our founder's head. And he has a background. He actually also worked at Johnson and Johnson, and he formed TEDx communities within Johnson and Johnson. And what that led to was a lot of product innovation and also a lot of workplace communities, because he created this way for people at a global corporation who maybe one person's in marketing and one person's in research and development. They never would have met each other, but they will at events like this. And that can be like that missing piece where maybe like you needed a marketing perspective for your change initiative to happen. So he has experience in building workplace communities, he has experience in driving organizational change. And it has been kind of a dream to not only form this company and this community, but also to have a conference that really celebrates those change agents. So that's kind of where the idea came from. But of course, once that happened, I think I panic slacked Yurii that we had to plan a conference. And then after that, I panic slacked my community and I said, hey, have you ever been to an online conference that you thought was really great, or that you thought maybe something wasn't so great? Like, what are your highs and lows, best and worst? What's one thing that you wish you had seen but never have? And folks came out and told me what they loved. They told me what they didn't love. And from there, I'm the queen of panic slacking. But when from there, we were able to start wrapping our idea around the conference that we wanted to build. And what was great is that in saying, hey, we're doing a conference, what do you think? We had members with opinions about conferences come out of the woodwork to tell us. That wound up leading to the group that we tapped to be our conference ambassadors. So I think if I had to kind of break down the segments of things that we did that I think are going well in the planning of this conference, it is talking to our community, talking to our internal team. It is talking to the folks who have signed up to be speakers. And the fourth would be, very importantly, talking to the folks who've registered to be attendees. But I'll start with kind of that ambassador one. So we tapped 17 folks from our community. They're all different identities, different ages, different experiences. They're at different points in their career. We pulled them into a Slack meeting and we made the decision to give them access to everything that we had. So that meant that they could go on our Miro board and see what was going on. They could check out the design direction and tell us they didn't like it if they wanted to. And that was actually really scary to record that Loom video and send it off to them, because it's really vulnerable to share something that you're working on and that is really important to you. But thankfully, our folks are brilliant and wonderful. And what was so great about the group that we tapped is they had so many different experiences and skill sets that we got the marketing perspective on what we were building. We got the design perspective on what we were building. We got the scientist perspective on what we were building. We really got to talk to a lot of different folks in that process. And while we certainly asked our community questions along the way, en masse, we really took the big questions to our ambassadors. They helped us source our speakers. They promoted the conference when we got our media kit. And really, I think they've been our biggest heroes along the way. And working with them has just been a dream. But we've also been reaching out to a lot of other folks. Yurii, I would love to toss your way to talk about reaching out to folks who have RSVP'd to the event itself now that promotion's live.
Yeah, I would only add one small thing that about reaching out to ambassadors, that we didn't ask them all at once. So it was like one small question per week or 2 weeks. So we didn't want them to do the job for us. So we really needed their help. And it really helped a lot because, when somebody asks me like, teach me community management, I'm like, okay, But if somebody have some concrete small question, it's much easier to help for sure. So reaching out to our cultivators, community members, not community participants who RSVP'd for the conference. I think he's or he was us. She was one of the people who I reached out. So how it works? Like we are really curious about what people think, what their expectations are. So we're not doing just a conference for the sake of the conference, to collect people, to show some numbers and all this stuff. We want people to have a great experience. We want them to learn something, and we really want them to connect with each other. And I'm always like have like more than 500 people already RSVP'd, and I don't know, but I think that minimum to 100 I reached out and I asked just 4 questions. So first, how did you hear about the conference? Second, what are you excited the most about? Then, is there name one speaker who you'd like to listen to? And the final, like it was not the final was about the speaker, but the third one was, are there any blockers why you cannot participate on 24th of January? And I had so many amazing answers that really helped us to understand why people are signing up, like what are the expectations. Even if somebody told like they want, for example, to listen to Craig's speech or to Steven's speech or to somebody else, I asked them, do you have any questions for the speaker so we can pass it to them? And some people even shared questions to speakers, and right away I shared those questions to speakers so they could understand like what are the expectations and maybe add this part to their speech to once again to bring more and more and more value. And you know, it may be like hard and sometimes not very responsive work, because for sure, like I don't know, maybe 10% of those people who I reached out to answered, or like okay, 20%, something like that. But it's still a lot of information, and it it is what I didn't do with my previous conference experience. So I had like in Ukraine, I made an in-person sales conference for 700 people, and then when the COVID was, I had 2 online conferences once again for sales for 3 and 500 people, and it was totally different experience because I had to decide who to invite of speakers and what people need. So like I didn't really ask my community, but it totally changed the game, because when you are asking people, as Lisa told, when you are a little vulnerable, like sharing your like backstage story, it builds so much better connection. And you know, I don't even know how to explain, but it just feels better and it works. So it's basically kind of my experience. And we had a lot, like it's all built around values, about stories, and we had a lot of challenges during this process. So Lisa, up to you.
Yeah, I love that we're reaching out to folks, because the great thing is too is that when we're like, hey, like I wonder what sessions people are most excited to sign up for, or whatever it may be, like we actually are going, we don't have exhaustive data, but we certainly have some, and we know why people want to listen to something. And it's also really cool to be able to take that information to speakers and tell them like someone's really excited for your talk, and that real person will be there live listening or recorded listening to you, and learning from your experience, which is awesome. And oh, bye James, thank you for being here. But yeah, when we talked about our thought about our values, and when we thought about kind of what was ahead of us and how we wanted to build this, the thing about this is it's an empowerment conference. Like, we want to empower people at work. So like, it's important that we feel empowered while we build it. It's important that our community feels empowered. And it's also important that our speakers feel empowered. I sometimes feel with conferences that speakers are kind of the like forgotten audience a little bit, because there is a lot, you need them to run your conference, right? But in my experience, I think it's often assumed that like you're going to do your talk and you're going to show up on time and it's going to be great. Figure out your backup internet, you know? And we really wanted to make sure that we supported our speakers, many of which are members of our community, to have a fantastic speaking experience and wind up with post-production recordings that they're super proud to share and that we can kind of have live on. So one of our values was that like member experience, but it was the member experience for speakers, for attendees who would be in our community, and for attendees who would not. So we kind of put a lot of thought into segmenting that out. And since I'm talking about the speakers, I'll kind of keep to that vein. We paired them with a speaker coach. We are a small organization. There are 13 of us, but we happen to look at what our skill set is as a company. We have excellent storytellers. We have excellent speakers. So we decided to pair each speaker with a speaker coach. They got to meet twice with their speaker coach. They got access to one of our public speaking programs for free, which was just kind of an added thing. If they wanted to use it, they could. They didn't have to. We had a kickoff call to make sure that everyone was on the same page going through it. And then they're getting step-by-step support along the way as they record their video and send it in, and also as they build any live sessions that they're doing on conference day. So jury is still out because the conference hasn't happened, but we are building up our surveys for the other side. I love what was shared about surveys being like step 3. So I hope to get in conversation with our speakers on the other side as well. Because if we don't give them a good experience, we are not going to have a conference next year. So that's kind of where we sat. We kind of had to look at the fact that we had a small team, limited resources just by nature of being a small team, and we had to play to our strengths and also to those values of making sure that we're empowering people at every step of the way along this journey. So challenges. I think we're in the last 2 weeks. So, and it's, I was saying to Lori earlier, it is Mercury retrograde right now. So like, it feels like everything is a challenge, but I know we'll be okay. I would say, and I'd love to hear from you, Yurii, too, on this. I would say for me, the biggest challenges were not knowing what I didn't know, because I've never planned a conference. So there were a lot of things that I didn't think about until it became so obvious that I should have done them yesterday. And I had to learn to do it. In that vein, I also would say learning to ask for help earlier. Asking for help is not a strength of mine. So as I have like reached out to my team, as I have reached out to my community, as I have reached out to, I had another community manager walk me through the hop-in back end and show me her conference on the week of her live event. So if you reach out and ask, my biggest lesson is that people want to help and that they'll be willing to. But I think getting over myself would be my biggest challenge in that regard. But what do you feel the biggest challenges have been so far, Yurii?
For me, like all the conference process, so how it usually works, you plan something and then you just do something. And also the hardest part for me was to asking for help, because when I was reaching out, I'm still reaching out to our participants. I'm asking questions. They're already helping by sharing their information, by sharing their thoughts. And I'm also asking for more help. I'm asking whether they can make a LinkedIn post, whether they know somebody who would like to attend to this conversation, whether they have some internal company or whether they are members of other communities where they can share, but just in case, if it's valuable for them and if they think it will be valuable for somebody else. So it's not like, hey, please share it with everyone you only know and even with people in the supermarket. No, it doesn't work that way. But it's also so hard because like some people like, yeah, sure, I will share. And some people like, I don't know you yet. Like, it's your first conference. Who are you? I can't share anything. And I was like, I totally understand you. Yes, thank you very much for your answer. And after receiving those answers, it makes even harder to ask next people. But I'm still asking because once again, well building it's all around values. Like I went to a lot of conference where you have a great content, but when the company ends, you are given to the sales team, and that's where all interesting stuff starts. And there is no sales here. We're all about values and connections. And even I told Lisa that I've never had this experience that somebody really care about speakers. So you can receive like some kind of media kit, you can receive some pictures to share, but here you receive like pictures to share, you receive text to share, and you receive guidance. So not only you can go through some course and learn how to speak better, but you have meetings with mentors who will literally like tell you and help you make your speech better. So it's like I've never had this experience. So that's exactly what I love about the CultivatorCon. So yeah, once again, reaching out to people, still the hardest, asking for help, the hardest thing you can only imagine.
I want to give you guys big kudos for so many reasons. The one that stands out right now is the fact that even though you're a small group, you're very mighty. And I feel like the service level that you're delivering, particularly by giving them the heart of the business and giving them a speaker coach, I expect that from a Salesforce level company. I expect that. And I feel like you guys are delivering gold standard service from a small company. And I think that's really, really amazing of you guys. So I just had to give you um, big, big high tens on that because I'm just so impressed with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you very
want to
much,
give
Laura.
props to our speaker coaches, our two leaders, our CEO and the partner in our firm are both speaker coaches, along with our workplace culture designer and also our creative director, who has both of which have given TED Talks, have taught a lot of people how to do them. And so I'm really excited. My hope is that speakers come out of it feeling enriched also, and that they learn something for their next talk. And I also hope, I mean, we're not asking for this, but I also hope that they're like, hey, speaking at CultivatorCon was a good experience. And like, if you want to build your speaker roster, that might be a place that you want to go. So I'm very proud that we are able to offer that. And I think again, it is a factor of just looking at like what are the strengths, what are the resources you have available. Would I love to have endless dollars to put on a conference? Of course I would. Would I love to have an endless team? Of course. Maybe no, I don't want that, but like maybe someone would want that. I think looking at what our strengths are, and our strengths I think are that speaker coaching. Our strengths are reaching out and doing those personal reach outs, because we haven't had a traditionally hefty marketing budget. So I think we've really learned to be agile, and I think that the conference has a lot of heart. If regardless of anything else, I think it has a lot of heart, and I think that it has, I'm excited for people to hear from incredible speakers that they haven't heard from before. one of our folks, she sent me her video this morning, and I think I told you the story already, Lori, but I won't give her full story away. But she had never listened to a podcast before and started a podcast network inside her company that wound up streaming in 63 countries. And one of my favorite parts, and she's not talking about this in this particular talk, was that two colleagues put together a show where they shared the misconceptions about people from their country. And that went live to the entire global company. And so this giant company got to not only meet these two incredible colleagues who they might not have ever met because they're on the other side of the world, but they also got to examine what their preconceived biases were about the people that they work with. And I think in that way, you take this big global corporation and you kind of make it feel a little bit smaller. And I think community at its heart, when it's done well, I think is taking something that feels impossible or insurmountable or weird or awkward and like making it feel like you're just talking to your friend. And so I hope we can do a little bit of that.
And also to, to make a big change, you have to just do a small step. So, but a small step every day. So that's exactly what we're doing. Small steps. We'll see how it goes. We'll definitely have more experience to share after the conference.
Yes.
And after we'll receive feedback from speakers, from participants. After we have a lot of reaching out to people, getting this feedback and all this stuff. So it's an interesting journey, and I'm super happy that I'm here with Lisa because she's just amazing. That's how it works.
You are too, and so is Sydney. Hi,
Yay.
Sydney, if you ever see this.
I hope Sydney sees it. Hey, do we have time for a couple questions?
Of course.
Would anybody Alex just commented on something. Alex, would you like to ask a question of Lisa Yurii?
No, it wasn't really a question, more just a comment. How obviously the speaker coaches was a really cool thing you guys were able to provide, even a small organization, which we're I'd say a medium organization, like 500-person company, but we had a small team of us that were running a conference about a year and a half-ish ago, and we supplied better upgraded hardware for all of for speakers as needed, including myself, so I was able to have a longer term. Hopefully, my mic's actually coming through well right now, but having like a real microphone, real camera, and all that, not just using laptop stuff. So it's kind of an added bonus that we had for people as needed. Just nice perk, I guess you could say. Some of the speaker coach. So I think it's really cool because we had a lot of issues at our conference. It didn't quite go as receptive, and I think that how you guys were asking your community and really gathering information, like you mentioned, having the team that was like seeing your mirror board as you were working on everything and getting all that feedback during the planning process, whereas we just kind of like launched everything and hoped it was for the best and just hoped what everyone wanted, which was not the best. Yeah, exactly, Harry. Not the best experience. So it was a good conference, but we didn't do it again in 22 because it wasn't well received enough that we felt the need to put in all that effort. So kudos to you guys for getting a lot of feedback ahead of time and hopefully putting out a lot of fires ahead of time.
Thank you.
I love I think, if we, I don't know if we could have found it in our organizational budget, but I think if we could, that's something I would love to gift folks some upgraded tech next year if we do this again, because now that we're getting videos in, I'm like trying to find workarounds and things like that on that. So I love that you're able to do that. And also just not a conference this year. I think that's like the thing in community that doesn't always get asked, right? Is like do you need a community for this thing? Do you need a conference? Like maybe we'll find out a conference is not the thing for us. We're just operating kind of on our best knowledge right now. So I also love that you're able to pivot there too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Do we actually need this, or is it something that someone who is higher up than us in an organization wants and gets stuck on. It's like, we need to do this. It's like, okay, that's going to be a lot of money and a lot of effort, but if you want to do it.
Yeah, I can only try, right?
Right.
Wow. There's so much going on in my mind. I'm so excited about this for you guys. And Alex, I wish you guys could do yours again, maybe in 2023.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We're doing much like more smaller things instead of one big thing, which
What are you
more to
doing?
just like smaller user groups, kind of like this, where you get people who have a common interest in a room, kind of going back to not the Zoom happy hour kind of thing, but that sort of concept. Now that that's not completely oversaturated anymore, it's like, okay, let's actually get people talking about like one part of our product or one part of our like one enablement functionality or something like that, and let's just get people who are experts or curious about it all in a room together. So instead of just one large conference that takes up a whole week of our customers' time or a couple days of our customers' time, and more scattershot, because we also have a very international audience. So what's good for those of us who are planning it, who are all in the US, is not very good times. And we're across the US even, so we have people East Coast, West Coast. So even the timings for us to be there for APAC or for EMEA or for anywhere in between is just not super convenient for everyone. So it's really, running conference at 2 a.m. my time while my kids are asleep kind of thing was really hard. But or even worse for people who are on the East Coast where it was 4 a.m. or something like that, wherever it was. So actually, did you guys? I can't remember if you touched on it or not. Do you have the international? Are you being sensitive to every time zone, or are you focusing more?
That is another one. Like the second you started saying, we actually have a good number of folks too who are in the APAC region, and we have some clients that we work with there as well. And so it's a tricky one. We aren't doing that this year. I think we just didn't have the capacity. But interestingly enough, I had a community member be like, I'd be willing to run some like late sessions so that we can get those folks. So it was too much operationally for us this year, but it's something, if we do it next year, I would love to figure that out. We had done a global DEI panel a bunch of months back, and we had one speaker was Eastern Time US, Nigeria, the UK, and Singapore, and we had it at 8 a.m. Eastern, and it was the only time we could find that worked. But I would love to like include more of those folks, both our members and as speakers. So if you find a great way to do that, anyone, I would love to hear it and put it in my parking lot for next year.
I look forward to that.
I love that.
Venya, would you like to speak?
Yeah, sorry, I just got back, but I actually just posted it in the chat, the solution that Jill and I were planning on. I don't see Jill in the chat right now. I think she just recently left. But one of the things that we ended up doing, because we spent hours talking about the time zone problem, and it's a community unconference, so we wanted to make sure that the unconference model was maintained. But in order for us to cater to other time zones, we literally put in 2 keynote speakers that were very, very short, just 20 minutes, from different time zones. And it acted, one, as a poll, but also as a more concrete advertising point for people who were virtual to feel like, yes, they were being noticed. So we have like one speaker from Singapore, and then the other one is going to be from somewhere in the States when the unconference is stationed in England.
That's so awesome. I love the idea of 2 keynotes or multiple keynotes.
Does anyone else have any questions or feedback or?
I love the idea of multiple keynotes too. My company sometimes does the recorded keynotes, and to me at least, I don't know if it's just how they do it. It's like you can you can tell that it's not completely authentic, in my opinion. So that's a really hard way to. It's a hard hurdle to jump, I guess, where if it's not real time, and it feels like everyone's watching the same video at the same time, is a totally different experience than someone actually live presenting. I think if someone can make it work for that one day, that's awesome.
Yeah.
A way better user experience.
We're doing a blend of live and recorded, and it's interesting because the way our conference framework is we wanted to give people a chance to tell their stories. So they're giving shorter talks about their cultivator story, so the change they made in their organization, what they learned from it, and those are pre-recorded, but our speakers will be there. So like I hope it will be cool. Because they will be there and they can like chat with people in the chat, and then they're giving live follow-up, so Q&As, live workshop sessions. So my hope is that we can kind of mitigate some of that. But as I'm getting videos, I totally hear what you're saying. It's so tricky to make it read live. I think that's like a skill very, very few folks have.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're more transparent about it, like if the person who's presenting is actively commenting in chat, it's like, yeah, this is me recording ahead of time, so I can be answering the questions live. Like if you almost like lean into it a little bit, I think it might be better, because it just looks, it's like you could tell the person's not typing and talking super animated at the same time.
Yeah.
One of the things that for Keystone Symposia, whenever we had recorded talks happening, because we tried to avoid it when we could, but to stop the authenticity issue, which was super, super common, we actually made a requirement where if you're going to do live, then it's totally fine for you to just be present for your session. But if you're going to do a recording, then the thing that we ask from you is that you are present in the speaker prior to you and the speaker after you's talk, so that people are aware you're in the chat half an hour early and half an hour later than your conversation, which really, really helps with the authenticity and presence.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything to add? Okay, well, I think we will, yes, adding pre-conference. I think we're going to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much, Yurii. Do we have a link to CultivatorCon? I'm signed up for it. I'm super excited. I encourage everyone to check it out. It's going to be amazing. And maybe we'll have a post CultivatorCon session where we could do lessons learned. Good. Everybody's yay. Heather registered too. Yay. Yay. So thank you both. And looking forward to seeing everybody at CultivatorCon. And thank you everybody for your time. And we're going to have another event this month. I believe that it is on January 26th. We're going to be meeting with Maggie, and I'm blanking on how to pronounce her last name. I think it's Egelbaum. Pardon me if I didn't pronounce it correctly, but she's going to talk about 5 things that K-pop taught her about community management. So I'm really excited. I'll send out an invite later this week or early next week. Really excited about it. And everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. See you on Slack, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you. Thanks for Bye.
Thank you very much for coming. See you.
Bye.